Good evening, Facebook. Good evening, YouTube. Welcome to another Sunday evening session with Brian and Janice. We are just so excited to be back with you on this beautiful Sunday evening. The weather has been absolutely beautiful, and the temperature is perfect, and we're loving every minute of it. We are so glad to be back with you all this weekend. We had to take a slight break due to a little travel. We went off to DC for about a week, and it was spectacular. Just to tell you guys that it's time for us to put the boots to the ground and get running. You know we got an election coming up in about 12, 13 months. So it's time for us to just rally together and get on board, decide what you are expecting from who you want to vote for or who you want to see back in the White House. With all this craziness going on and what they're doing, we are currently without a House Speaker right now. Yeah. And that to me is unheard of, but hey, nothing surprises me these days with our government. So without further ado, we're going to hit the ground running, and I just want to propose this question. How do we validate or justify for what our ancestors fought so hard for all those years, all the beatings and the brutalities that they had to be subjected to get us to where we are now? And it looks like we're taking steps backward. It is time for us to pick this thing up, get this ball rolling, be confident in what you believe in, let your voice be heard, speak up, speak out, rally together, and let's make this country what we know it should be for us as African Americans. Amen?
Takes some hard work to do that, but we collectively, I think that is that's the only answer is, this is a time where we have to learn how to pull together, to unite our resources, and to collectively trust each other that we can do this as a group. Of course, I was reading today and just doing some research, and I was reading the Griot, and you can actually look this up with thegriot.com. But one of the analysts was saying that, we had the George Floyd incident several years ago, and that she thought that would,
awaken
corporations, awaken, America to some of the wrongs that had been indicted upon us as a people group. And she felt like it would make a difference as it relates to how Black people are viewed, some of the things that, Black people, what we have gone through, what we are experiencing in this country, that all of that would be brought to the forefront, that it would, change the conscience of America on how it dealt with us as people. And she said, not to her surprise, a couple of years, here we are a couple of years later, that, the George Floyd incident has died down. Okay, corporations that had put in place DEI departments are now getting rid of their DEI managers. Okay, people have lost more jobs now. This year alone, corporations are laying off people. Corporations are terminating people for no particular reason at all, just because they can.
Yes.
And the majority of those people that are being affected, guess what color they are?
They're Black.
They're African Americans. Yes. They're Black.
Yes.
Okay. So she said she sees that nothing really has changed. And it was a wake-up call for her to see that if we don't do this thing ourselves, if we don't believe in who we are as a people and collectively come together and say, no, we're not going to depend on anybody else to save us anymore. We're not going to depend on government. We're not going to depend on these corporations. We're going to put our resources behind each other, and we are going to depend on each other to be our savior. If we don't do that, then we have a problem that cannot be fixed. So we have got to get to a place as black people to where we start trusting in each other again. Like I said, I espouse the whole concept of Ubuntu. You all have heard me talk about that multiple occasions.
I am you.
And you are me.
And you are
I
me.
am because you are because I am. So we have to get to a place to where we begin to believe that, we begin to act upon that, we begin to establish a code of ethics among ourselves as a people. We return to principles and integrity in how we handle each other. We need to stop lying to each other, the jealousy, the backbiting, the bigotry that happens amongst our people. At some point in time, I think we just need to recognize that we've got to do better as a people.
Yes. And
we cannot continue to allow our culture to be shaped by, those pundits that doesn't want to see the success of a group, a nation in this country. Okay, so we have to, as black people, realize we have to recognize who our enemies are. And our enemy is not us, even though we're told daily that we are our own worst enemy in some regard because of the way we have been conditioned to think.
Yes, how we've
and
been
because
treated.
We've been socially engineered. Okay?
Yes.
So because of those things, you understand, we look at each other as a danger to each other. And that is just not true. But when you are constantly bombarded with media that shows us killing each other, when you're constantly bombarded with Hollywood media that shows our women portraying themselves as no more than sluts and whores and sex objects, when we look at a media that shows our men brandishing weapons and gangster this, gangster that, not proud of being a father, absent from the home, when you see all of these things, smoking dope, hanging out on the street corner, talking about who they're going to murder today, who they're going to kill tomorrow, when you partake in media like that, it shapes the psyche of a people to act a certain type of way.
Yes, it does.
And to present a certain savagery about themselves. So we have to stop buying into the propaganda machine. We have to stop being socially engineered and culturally conditioned if we are ever going to break out of this cycle. So the whole concept of, it starts in the mind. If they get your mind, that's why Bob Marley talks about free yourself from mental slavery. None but us can free our minds. See, none but us can free our minds. So if we don't do that, if we continue to fall prey and victim to the social engineering and the cultural conditioning, then we're setting ourselves up for self-annihilation, and we're setting ourselves up for extinction. As a black people, see, they're already, and I've said this on multiple occasions, they're already structuring and fashioning the DNA to where there are, or they're not going to be in the next 10 to 20 years, any full black African families. That's what they're doing. Okay. Uh-huh. So the whole concept with the mixing of ethnic groups and diversity. See, all of those things have an ulterior motive behind it. And oftentimes, black people do not see the ulterior motive because we buy into the propaganda of this is how the world is changing. And oftentimes when we do that, we forsake the love of ourselves. We forsake the love of our people over the love of other groups and other peoples. We will love them first before loving ourselves and loving our own and investing in ourselves and inputting seed into ourselves.
Yeah. But Brian, I don't mean to interject here, but don't you think some of this is in our DNA? We've actually been conditioned from our ancestors due to slavery and the way that they were treated?
I absolutely would agree with that. That a lot of this, and there's been multiple books written and research done as it relates to the altering of our DNA and how the gene pool of the African was so, as far, I guess I would say the gene pool of the African was contaminated.
Yes.
Okay, to the point to where not only did it affect us physically, but it affected us psychologically as well, mentally as well. So the brain went to our consciousness because we understand that the brain, when we talk about the physical muscle is just there to send signals out
to the rest of the body.
Yes. That's the plain English for it. But we know that the mind is something that is not a physical entity.
Exactly.
Okay?
Yes.
It is a conscious and what they call a subconscious presence or spirit or soul, however you want to define it.
Yes.
That is affected and that was affected by the contamination of our gene pool. So it transformed our conscious and our subconscious in the way that we act, the way that we treat each other, the way our thoughts are towards each other. So yes, all of that was affected when we experienced those that had never been to our land, when we experienced the colonizers, okay, when they came in and we had never seen anything like them.
Yes.
Okay, those that were isolated, those tribes that had not known anybody, and as they infiltrated,
yes,
colonized certain areas, even over here in the Americas, prior to what we know as the transatlantic slave trade. Okay, so when we got to go back to the 1400s. Okay, when they were making voyages, and see, Columbus was not the first over in the Americas. He didn't discover anything.
Okay.
And we also understand that Columbus had an African navigator, okay, that said our people had been traveling along those Atlantic breezes and fairways for thousands of years. So when Columbus landed in America, guess who the first people he laid eyes on? What we call native Indian were actually native to the motherland that had traveled over here hundreds of years prior to that. So many things were affected in us as a people. Okay? And so when you start reading about these different expeditions of the Spaniards, of the Portuguese, those particular groups that were the first to actually coin what we know as the slave trade. Okay? They were familiar, they had been taught by Africans who were very astute when it came to maritime travel. Okay, so we have to as black people, we don't recognize our worth and our value has a lot to do with
yes.
why we are
in the condition that we're
the way.
in.
That's
yes.
right, the way we are
yes.
now. But prior to that, we understood our genius. Okay, and there's a good book called "The Africans That Were Too Nice," and what it focuses on is African people have always treated their neighbors with kindness. They were not known to be inhospitable, if you will, and untoward, to their neighbors. They were known to be very hospitable, very kind, and that kindness was taken for granted, used, taken advantage of, was seen as opportunity for those that came in and was not as kind. Okay, so when you look at black people today, we still suffer from that slave syndrome, that slave mentality. We still suffer prior to slavery. We still, what is innately us is we are kind people. Now, what has been altered is through many, many years of mental conditioning, hundreds of years of mental conditioning, what has been altered is that the mind now is conditioned to automatically accept someone over your own. Okay.
Wow.
So that was altered. So when you see the colonizers come in, you have such things as the missionaries. And guess what the missionaries focused on first? They did not focus on taking their God away first. They focused on reteaching them first. That's why the schools were set up. Okay? That's why the mission schools were set up first. So they did not establish churches first when they colonized Africa. They established mission schools first. Okay? And then the churches came second, because they understood that first we need to reprogram
their minds,
their psyche as it relates to their culture. Okay? And then once we do that, then we can deal with the religious side of things. We can then implement what we know as our God in our religion after we reshape their thinking about their culture, about how they function, how they treat each other, how they live, what type of civil laws they need out for justice. See, all of those things had to be reconditioned first, had to be redone first. So there was a reprogramming that had to happen in that facet first prior to them giving them their gods. Okay, so we're dealing with the same thing today, because we can't break free of the understanding that we had something better that,
yes,
you understand, than they had. Not only that, we can't get to the place to where we realize that we were the creators of what we know as the education system. We were the first to have what we know as higher learning institutions, what we call colleges. Okay? What we call colleges now, our ancestors would have called elementary schools, because colleges do not teach you anything. What they do is program you to think and act the way that a certain group in society says is acceptable. Okay? And they teach you based off of a subject matter concerning your profession. So that's why you can have black folks with doctorate degrees that are so boule, the only identity they have with culture is they listen to a few rap songs, they talk about Beyonce and Lil Wayne, but they do not understand the value of what it is to go and work and live in a ghetto and really truly help their people. They're sold out to nonprofits because that doesn't require them leaving the comfort of their home. You understand what I'm saying? They look for all type of funding because they don't want to use their own monies. You understand? They don't believe in the building truly of their people. So they look for these alternative programs that's been set up to really not help poor people. Okay, so, and even when you look at the origin of nonprofit organizations have been around since 1715. But when they were initially organized to help people that were in poverty receive what the government was robbing them of. So there was an overtaxation. So philanthropists set up organizations to make sure that the money that the government was taking from the people could be funneled back to the people. That's why they were set up. Now nonprofits have gotten away from that. Okay? Nonprofits are no more than, in my opinion, there are some good ones, so I don't want to paint a broad brush, like I said, with all the nonprofits, but most nonprofits are money laundering organizations. They are organizations that are founded to launder money into those that sit on the board and that call themselves the founders of these nonprofits. And majority of those that they claim they're getting information to is supposed to be help, never seek help from these type of organizations.
Wow.
Okay. And the ones that actually start nonprofits, they are your community middle class and upper class that starts these nonprofits to so-called help those that are poor or may not be receiving, but they never get the money to the people.
Wow.
Okay, so now that's just one instance. Like I said, I cannot paint every nonprofit as a evil entity, so to speak.
It's not.
Okay, because some nonprofits are doing a good work with very little funding.
Exactly.
Okay?
Yes.
I've experienced that, me having one myself.
Yes.
I did much more than most of your major nonprofits that got millions of dollars. We helped more people with the little monies that we put in and got funding to help than most big nonprofits. But we were boots on the grounds, we were in the houses, we were talking to the people, we were educating the children, we were taking the children in. That is the difference. You understand what I'm saying? So there's so much, brothers and sisters, that we are just not educated on when we look at even city-wise. When we look at what they call SBGs, small block grants. Okay, when we look at,
let's talk about that.
When we look at different bonds that are set up, 20-year bonds, if it's a large bond, all of those things, as city government officials, we need to understand, and I'm saying I'm not a government official, okay? But I do a lot of research when it comes to certain grants, when it comes to funding.
Yes. So
understanding government is something that we all need to do. We all need to understand how government works. So there's a need for civics to be taught. But when you talk about city officials getting grants, being able to establish grants, things of that nature, to do certain projects, being able to float bonds for certain things that they want to do as it relates to beautification of the city, infrastructure of the city, investing in bringing businesses in, tax breaks for manufacturers that comes. We have to become innovative as a group of people, okay, to where we think outside of the box.
Yes.
And stop relying and depending on just looking at what is Governor Kay Ivey going to give us out of this particular grant money that the state received from the federal government. this is where we are backwards thinking. Okay? Black communities are always last. Ever since there has been a state in Alabama, if you go back to the 1901...
Not a state in Alabama, baby.
Ever since there's been a state of Alabama.
Yes.
Ever since there's been a state of Alabama, you go back to the 1901 Constitution. Black people were last. They were not, in 1901, not even considered to be citizens in the state of Alabama. Some of the language, majority of the language, 95% of the language that's in the 1901 Constitution for the state of Alabama has not been changed. Okay? The way that money has been, the way money is parted out has not changed. The majority black, poor, rural communities are always last. You understand?
And we don't get it.
So we don't get it. And whenever there is development going on, if your development committee don't have a city architect or engineer that can design the layout, what you want to do in order to get funding. See, we're
but
just
you got to have a vision. The head has to have that.
Right.
Present that.
The head does have to know what needs to be done in order to demand money to develop your city. Okay, if you're just waiting to get money and then you get money and then you put a development plan in place, that's backwards. That's working backwards. Okay, no, you develop your plan, you put the 10 to 20 year plan in place, and then you say, this is what we're going to need. This is the demand. See, you've got West Alabama, Selma should be one of the most prosperous cities in this state.
In Alabama,
now, understanding that they purposely, during the Highway Act, they purposely rerouted the interstate around Selma. Why? To stop the flow of revenue in Selma. Okay? Now, that's a whole different history that I would have to educate you all on. Okay? But now you've got the mayor of Tuscaloosa in the rural areas of Tuscaloosa. You've got the mayor of Thomasville. Okay, where money is going, it still have flowed around Selma. Okay, the little money that Selma's getting, Selma has been dealing with infrastructure problems for over 20 years.
Longer than that,
Longer than that. Been dealing with sewage problems for over 20 years. So what has been the problem? See, but there again goes back to inadequacy as it relates to understanding how government should function and being able to demand. Okay, so Frederick Douglass, and I quoted this last time, power concedes nothing without a demand. So we're continuing to accept handouts based on old constitutional laws and based on black people considering to be the most marginalized people in the state that really don't need much to survive. So we'll bypass them. We'll go around them. Okay. So what the mayor of Thomasville and the mayor of Tuscaloosa have said is that with our infrastructure problems, with our highway road problems, we believe that the state of Alabama, if you want to route the interstate from the state line to Tennessee, that's fine. But we're not going to be overlooked this time. And we believe that there are smart enough people in the state of Alabama and there are enough engineers in the state of Alabama where both projects can happen at the same time. While you're rerouting the interstate or improving the interstate from the Alabama to the Tennessee line, you can also reroute the interstate and parts of the interstate to come in this highway project to run through our towns that's going to produce, watch this, revenue. It's going to drive the economy. It's going to bring in more jobs. It's going to create easy access from the interstate into our cities, out of our cities, in the rural areas that need it. We're not going to be overlooked this time. You understand what I'm saying? So it's a matter of, and then when you see these mayors meeting with the Lieutenant Governor Ainsworth and shaking hands with them, but yet we want a photo op and then stand in front of a camera and not really have something to present that is really going to work and move the city forward. And then we want to put a Band-Aid on an open wound that's bleeding instead of stitching up the wound, there's a problem. You understand?
Yes.
So whenever you got dilapidated buildings, something that Montgomery has did,
this was a great thing Montgomery did.
They proposed a blighted law, so that has to go through the proper channels, and then comes to the council, and then the council will vote on it. But the blight law will allow them to send out letters of all the blighted properties to the owners. Mm-hmm. And then once those owners get those letters, they have a certain time frame to reply, and they have a certain time frame that's stipulated to do something about the building. If not, that building
belongs to that city. The
city can claim it pretty much as eminent domain, so to speak.
Yes.
Okay? So what am I saying? I'm simply saying this. This is not being critical of anyone. This is simply saying
this is facts.
That we need to be, when it comes to our people, okay, we need to stop making excuses for the lack of our own tenacity. You understand? And what we have not done, or what we have been negligent on doing. Because a lot of times what it takes in government, yes, we know that money takes time to filter down through bills, laws, things like that. We understand that president have to sign off here or there, and then it comes through your state representatives. Terry Sewell has done a great job.
Yes, she has. On
getting funding to come, and she hasn't been partial.
Right.
You understand? So she's represented her areas very well. What we have to do when you're dealing with as a city government, okay, you have to know how to pull the strings of those state officials and make enough noise. Frederick Douglass
agitate.
That's what he said. Agitate. We have to know how to agitate, how to pull the strings to get things done. And talking about, the African proverb, how does one eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Okay, we've been eating this elephant over 200 years. If the elephant ain't gone yet, it's not gone.
It's not going anywhere.
Okay, so now you got to find another way to dispose of the elephant. You understand?
Yes.
Okay, so that is where I think black people in general, that is where we are. We have been biting on the same elephant for over 400 years now. Economically, we have been trusting an entity called the U.S. government to take care of us.
Yes.
When Malcolm has told us that the government is not going to take care of you, Dr. King, which nobody likes to talk about because they want to paint a beautiful, lovey-dovey picture of Dr. King, but Dr. King understood when he says, now we got to go for the check, we need to go for the gusto.
Yes.
Queen Mother Moore with reparations understood that if black people don't get some money in their hand, they're not going anywhere. Dr. Claude Anderson with the Powernomics book, he understood that if black people don't get money to start their own businesses, to become economically independent and free of this country's handing us out tokens, that we are not going to make it. And it is a sad thing that our officials cannot see that. They beg for the same pennies every election cycle, beg for the same pennies every 2, 3, 4, however many years. And we have got to get to a place, like I said in our introduction opening up, where we trust each other. Are we not brilliant enough to put some things in place and to work with each other? See, my thing is, angry people, you got women angry. You got black men angry. You got black women angry. The culture teaches our children to be angry at their parents.
Definitely.
It teaches, you understand what I'm saying? Teaches the parents to be angry at the children. We got so many different dynamics, not understanding on how we have protected each other over years. Instead of the child being angry at a parent, why can't the child see, Mama protected me, Daddy protected me, caused me to be where I am today.
Yes.
But the society teaches, now this is funny, teaches that the children's right should supersede the parents'
right.
Right. And unfortunate, because black people, we are so ignorant when it comes to certain things and being culturally conditioned. We buy into the media more than any other ethnic group. You do not see any other ethnic group sacrifice their code of ethics. Like I said, black people need to return to that. They don't sacrifice their morals as it relates to how they were raised. You could not pay me to say anything negative to my mom or dad.
No, sir.
Or to rise up at them.
Never.
Or to curse them. You understand what I'm saying? It was just beyond, I could not. But
Brian, you couldn't pay us to be out of order or curse any adult.
Anybody. That's right.
Not just our parents, any elder.
Any elder. Our children have been so, now, there again, socially conditioned with hip-hop, with this culture of booty shaking and idolizing stars that are living in multi-billion-dollar mansions. They ain't no more concerned about you than the man in the moon.
They don't care about you.
So when we spend, this gets me. The city will invest in building a sports stadium over building schools. The city will invest in a venue and put it right in the ghetto. Black people can be entertained over putting a nice technical school there that teaches STEM, technology. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
Engineering, mathematics. They'll put a venue where those people could be entertained over putting a place where they can be educated and be equipped to be successful in society.
Now, what kind of sense does that make?
Our people have been hoodwinked.
And bamboozled.
Yes, for too long.
Yes.
So at some point, we have to wake up to and see what really is going on. And it's no different with what we saw. You understand? When the colonizers came in and they offered us rum. Okay? No different. And rum became a commodity in Africa that was consumed, and it started our drunkenness and blindness. You understand what I'm saying? We're falling into the same trap.
Yes, we are.
We are media drunks.
Yes.
We are, social media addicts.
Yes.
We strung out on drugs.
Yes. It's an addiction.
Social media, it is. Social
you can't even
media,
have a conversation without anybody.
It's just as worse as crack cocaine. Because our people buy into those things, and it keeps us from being functional as it relates to understanding how government works, understanding the laws of government, reading law books. You do not have to be an attorney to be educated as an attorney.
That's right.
Okay? I represented myself against a multi-billion-dollar company and won.
You did that.
And have written letters for you to take to the court and won. So nobody can tell me that we cannot educate ourselves, even if that may not be your profession. Doesn't mean that you cannot educate yourself in it. Exactly. You understand?
Yes.
We have got to get back to a place where we value each other, we value learning, and stop making these poor excuses. Woe is me, blaming each other. I often say, and you hear me say this all the time, we need to look in the mirror While you blaming somebody else, you failing to look at the true problem, and that is yourself. That's what black people need to accept. That is not white people. Yes, they still do their dirt, but for the most part now, when are we going to stop blaming them and start looking at us and saying, hold up. The problem now is us buying
into it.
That's exactly right. See, we're buying the lie. We're believing the lie. We're promoting the lie.
Yeah.
We live in the lie.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? So, and we live this lie every day. You know, we want to be something that this country will not allow us to fully be. One thing this country will not allow us to fully participate in freedom. You understand? We're happy now just about maybe having another congressional district because the Supreme Court, you understand,
yeah,
shot down the lawsuit that was brought to them by the state of Alabama to redraw the maps back to what it originally was.
Supposed to be, what it already was.
We're happy because now we may get another black representative. Come on, man. What is wrong with us? You understand what I'm saying? Where is the fatty little hammer that says, no, we'll start our own Democratic Party? And if we can't be at the table, then we'll make our own table.
That's it.
What in y'all, I'm sorry. I get passionate about this because I'm really serious. We don't think anymore. We don't take time to rationalize and to critically think about what we need as black people. And see, the poor, war, Dr. King said, is the enemy of the poor.
Always has been.
The war in Ukraine, the uprising now that's going on in the Middle East with Israel and Palestine. Okay, that is another war that has been going on for over 1,000 years now. People don't understand the history between those two warring factors. You understand? They don't understand that strip that is occupied now,
the Gaza Strip,
okay, was occupied by all African people. They don't understand that Jerusalem was African. They don't understand that the people that occupy the land of Israel now, not the same people that was over there 1,000 years ago.
Who are those people that are there now, Brian? Who are those people? The
majority of those people that are there now are your European faction of Jews that are out of Russia, Poland, Germany, okay, out of those areas, okay, Italy. And we could really get into the depth of that, on another show and really dissect that. But war is always the enemy of the poor. See, I'm concerned no people should be attacked.
No.
The people of Israel shouldn't be attacked. The people of Palestine shouldn't be attacked. You understand? I'm a man of peace. When you are a person of peace, when you graduate to that spiritual level, you don't condone violence against any group. Okay, so we have to, and that's why it's so important to understand history as well. Malcolm was a man of peace. Now, a man of peace, don't get me wrong, I'll defend my family at all costs. Nobody's going to walk over my family or walk over me. You understand? But a man of peace follows peace. He seeks peace first. Any people group all deserve to live and experience life based on their understanding. You understand? That sometimes, and especially when we deal with black people, sometimes I think that's hard for us to rationalize and to realize. Okay? So when you talk about, let's draw the contrast of gang violence amongst each other. Okay? How do we get to a place to where we're not seeking war with each other? You understand what I'm saying? And we're not trying to prove who the baddest is. And I say most men that deal with that is a person that has a complex. It's called not understanding your identity.
Not know who you are.
Yeah. And also a lack of self-esteem. Not confident. So there's been a lack of something in your life that was maybe present in others' lives. Maybe a lack of a father, lack of a mother, lack of understanding, being able to be taught properly. You understand what I'm saying? Not having a background, a spiritual background that would help you. So anytime you see a man dealing with identity issues, he resorts to, I'm the baddest man on the planet.
Exactly.
He tries to sell a wolf ticket.
Yeah. And he's actually weak.
But if you test that individual, they'll show you who they really are. You understand what I'm saying? They're not as bad as you are. And I understand it. You know, I can draw everything back to what happened to us as black men and black women as well. Okay? Even, you know, with what we're seeing with the dynamic of change that's happening in the atmosphere. So as it relates to who we culturally are becoming as a black people. Okay? So I'm going to stop there and let you say something. But you had your book.
I'm learning, and I am enjoying every bit of it. And I thank you for it, Brian. And we really appreciate your teaching and how you dissect and research and give us the facts. Because so many times, a lot of people, they're just talking, just to hear themselves talk. And they haven't really done the research. I know that you do the research. I know that you've done the study. I know that you try. You lead by example. I know that. And that's not saying it because of who you are to me. That's saying that who you are as a person. Whether we like what you're saying or not. A lot of times truth hurts. You know, and some things are just the truth. And when you can accept the truth and learn from it, then you can move on and do better and be better for it. How can you expect a people to do better or to know better if they don't know the truth? They think that the way they're going about this thing is the right way. And don't be so quick to be offended when somebody that knows and has done the research and has proven this thing time and time again can help you along the way.
Listen, the great James Baldwin said that the government Negro urban renewal plan was actually the Negro urban removal plan. Okay. I love some James Baldwin. I love all black writers. They just, but when those men, when you hear that, this brother pegged gentrification. Put it in simple terms, the government urban renewal plan is no more than the government urban removal plan. Look at downtown Montgomery. Look at Riverside Apartments now being torn down, black people being relocated to Section 8 homes all over the cities, families being uprooted, dispersed. You understand? For them to put a failed water park there that we don't participate in, but you got some of us that wants to learn how to canoe. I'm going to go down there just to go. You understand? Just to say I went down there and got in the canoe. You understand what I'm saying? So at least they can see a black face. They got black canoe instructors, I'm sure.
But there have been blacks that go down there.
I get it. But what happened? You understand? Cities all over these United States Washington, D.C., we were there all last week, okay? Used to be known as Chocolate City. I told you the history before we got there, and then we heard the tour guide say to repeat the history I gave. Washington, D.C. at one time was Chocolate City until the government put a urban renewal program in place, and they uprooted all the blacks out of Washington, D.C., redid the condominiums, townhomes, and the houses.
And they did them too, honey.
And they priced the black folk out. So the area now that is known as the district in Washington, D.C., that used to be all black, is now all white.
Yes.
It is the quietest, most desired,
beautiful
part of the D.C.
area,
downtown. But at one time, it was all black. Now they're putting the same plan in place in Anacostia, where Frederick Douglass' home is.
Yes. And we had the opportunity to see that.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So we don't get it. But, you know, black people have a problem comprehending what is really taking place.
What's going on?
You know, when we look, Detroit, Michigan, same thing is happening there right now.
Yes.
Detroit downtown, everybody talking about how it's coming back, but it's all white investors. All the blacks that were in Detroit downtown area have been rezoned. It's been gentrified. They've been moved out. So I could go on and on.
What is so hard about us not seeing that? What is it that we don't get? How can you not see that?
If you do not have money, you do not have a voice. Okay? And that is Dr. Claude Anderson.
Yes, he said it.
Helps us to understand that power is green. Okay? If you are a poor person, you don't have a voice, and you have to rely on these weak leaders. You understand that we call black leadership, which are no more than leaders with black face painted on. Some of them are still some of the old ones that stood with the Black Panthers that are in leadership now. They still fighting, but they're old. They're getting ready to vacate the scene.
Yes,
you understand what I'm
saying?
These so-called leaders that are coming behind our ancestors and elders that would fight don't have a backbone. They got a yellow streak running down their back. Okay? They will not fight for the great majority of black people who are still in the bottom class, with the fifth now on the bottom tier of the ladder. Okay? Each year we get pushed down. The more immigrants that come in, the lower we go. Okay? So we are being pushed out.
Yes.
Okay? And that is what is happening. So we have to really make some hard decisions. We shouldn't want anybody that's going to talk nice about what's going on and here are the possibilities. Man, forget that. What are you talking about? Here are the possibilities. Do you not understand your history? Do you not know your history? See, I'm going to challenge you on what you know as far as history. I know the state of Alabama's history. I got 5 or 6 big, thick books in there about just politics in Alabama and how it works in the underhandedness.
Yes.
You understand?
Yes.
And those Europeans that run the politics of Alabama that's still in place, in the old dirty money that runs the politics of Alabama.
Yes.
So I'm going to challenge your knowledge when you tell me that, oh, we're getting something done, we're making, what do you mean? We're not making headway. Do you not understand the government and how it was designed and structured as it relates to black people getting a dime? Have you forgotten that you're still waiting on 40 acres and a mule? and $100, you're still waiting on that. That was taken away from you. A few got it before it was stopped, but the great majority, just like we're still waiting today, the great majority did not get a dime. You understand? So we have to be concerned about the majority. It cannot be, if black people are going to sustain themselves, it cannot be a help a few. The term and the phrase doing for the middle class excludes black people. It is a coded phrase. Majority of black people are not in the middle class. And the few that are in the middle class, you just there and you'll get the breadcrumbs from the master's table. Okay? You get the trickle down effect. It hits you because you may be in that group, but it is a coded phrase, it's coded language. For we don't want to help black people.
That's exactly right.
Okay?
That's it.
Now we can't do anything about the ones that may be in that group, but this is not for that group. Being able to strengthen the middle class excludes black people, period. And if we don't see that, if we cannot recognize the coded language and understand that we've got to do something for ourselves, or even if we don't, even the ones that are so-called middle class now,
they're going to be
your job is on the line too.
Exactly.
You understand what I'm saying?
Because AI wiping a whole lot of them out.
AI, and not only that, the more that diversity, equity, and inclusiveness
is done away with.
It's done away with. But not only that, the more that it is pushed, okay, it is pushed to integrate people of color, not African American people, not black people. Okay, so when you see that, that's one thing I brought up with our DEI department. Designate African American, designate black. You talk about people of color, nobody says in DEI black people. Why? You understand what I'm saying?
Because it's not for black people.
It's not for black people. It is a way to push black people in upper level management out. So we need to get a clue, is what we need to get. If we think our jobs are secure because we have degrees, may have multiple degrees, we may be intelligent, but we have to understand that what they do to the least of these, they'll do to you as well.
Exactly.
Okay? And we are not as secure as we think we are. You understand?
I know it. It's true.
We have got to start.
We got to wake up. Really.
We really do.
Yeah, we're asleep. Well, I really appreciate this today, Brian. Thank you so much. I'm sorry that I had my book, but it was something I wanted to share with you all. It was awesome for me. If you don't have this book, Powernomics, is very simple read. I mean, it's medium sized, but I promise you will not put it down once you pick it up. Dr. Claude Anderson, Powernomics. Thank you, Dr. Claude Anderson. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So, listen, you guys, this is not to beat up on anybody, because trust me, I get whipped every day. Learning, growing, teaching. No, with knowledge. I mean, if they feel like you're being beat up, Brian, if you're picking on anybody, it's not directed at anybody specifically. It's the truth. And that is all that matters. That is all that matters. I don't care how you give it to me, just give me the facts. Okay? I'll deal with how I feel about it later. Because at this point, I'm over my feelings. I just need to be better. We want to be better. And you can share this video, and I tell people all the time, if you can't listen to what is being taught to you, I just don't know what to say. If you don't get it, I understand. You can always inbox me. Brian I'd be more than happy to break it down and make it where anybody can understand. He gets on these shows and he goes further, a little bit deeper, but he can actually go even deeper than that.
Yeah, we're just doing the surface scratch.
That's what I get every day. So it changed my life in every way possible. And it's not that it makes you better than anybody. It helps you be better for you. I'm not in competition with anybody. All I want to do is have a better life for myself and my grandchildren, my children and my grandchildren. And if we can't care about our own, we definitely can't care about anybody else. How better to do it than to educate yourself, to read. I'm done.
Can I end with this? And we'll end with this. I want to read just a little bit from this book, and then we'll end in reference to what you're saying and what I just said, okay? It says, the segregated ghetto contained too little capital, and its main export, labor, was struggling to find work as industries abandoned America's cities for the less costly suburbs before eventually moving offshore. These trends were self-reinforcing. Urban decline pushed businesses out of the ghetto, which led to further urban decline. As businesses moved to the suburbs where land was cheaper and businesses cost lower, the ghetto suffered from both high prices and general deterioration. In the economic trap of the ghetto, small retailers sold inferior products at higher prices because they had lower sales volumes, lower profits, and higher costs. Because suburban retailers had an economically diverse set of customers and higher sales volumes, their costs were lower. The economy of the black inner city was a unique vortex of negative forces that further compounded poverty. In 1965, Kenneth Clark described the dark ghettos as social, political, educational, and above all, economic colonies. And I will end there with the good book. This should be next to your Bible. The Color of Money. Black Banks and the Racial Wealth Gap by Mercer Badarin. All right. We'll end there.
Yes.
Thank you, Facebook family. Thank you,
YouTube family.
Everybody for listening to us pontificate.
And please share this video.
Okay.
Please. I mean, if you have to watch it 10 times to get it, it's okay. Because trust me, this is money in the bank. To have this knowledge. As they say, knowledge is power. And it's been proven time and time again.
Yes, it has.
All right. So, again, Brian and I, from the bottom of our hearts, we thank you all for joining us on this beautiful Sunday evening. And have a wonderful and prosperous week.
God bless.